Apparently, it was Kurt Russell's idea to have Snake Plissken have an eye patch. Can you imagine Snake Plissken without an eye patch? Why don't you tell Superman not to have a cape? Why don't you tell Jessica Rabbit not to have any boobs? Why don't you tell Bruce Lee to not have any scars? Why don't you tell, I don't know, Jason Voorhees to not have a hockey mask instead of a pillowcase over his head? Wait, they've already done that. But wait a minute, doesn't matter. Point stands, it's an iconic look. And this highest of high concept, I wished I could give it the praise it deserves, but I cannot quite do that. It is a really, really good movie. But I will have some butts into the discussion we're gonna have today about Escape from New York. So the year is 1996 and America is being swarmed over by crime, and the only solution to this one is to build an entire prison out of Manhattan. Manhattan as an island is totally isolated, and all the inmates are being dropped in there and just living their lives. No guards, no nothing. Great. Unfortunately for them, the president's plane, Air Force One, has crashed. Wait, was it Air Force 3, by the way? Or was it Air Force One? I can't quite remember that one. Anyway, it has crashed in New York, and he's being held there by an evil Djurö, and who demands that he will be released from prison. And this is also when he was on the way to deliver a very important speech to the leader of the Soviet Union. So, what to do in this case? Well, Bob Hawke, who is some kind of a head of the police or something like that. I can't quite remember what he was, but he has a solution. They're going to send in one man, an already convicted felon who is, being granted pardon for his crimes if he can rescue the president. So he's going to go in there, snatch the president, and be back within 24 hours. And just to make sure that he just doesn't bail on them, they have implanted a small bomb in his head, which goes off in 24 hours unless he can get the president back. If that doesn't sound so awesome that you will have an instant cinema boner once you've heard that one, I don't know what is. And then the movie begins. And every time the great opening with Jamie Lee Curtis narrating the plot, and the absolutely magnificent theme by John Carpenter, down, down, da, 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 na, na, da, na, na, da, 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 down. Sounds, I get so excited. This time I'm going to love this movie. This time I'm going to finally get it. And but as soon as Kurt Russell lands in New York and tries to find the history's most British president of all time in America, and encounters all of these great characters, Cabby, everyone's favorite nice grandpa, and all these side characters that are kind of fun and trying to escape the evil dukes and his cronies. Duke, by the way, is played by Isaac Hayes. Something happens with the movie. As the movie progresses, I just get a little bit of, yeah, this is kind of good, but it could have been so much better. I don't know whether or not it's because John Carpenter in his heart and soul is a horror director and works better with horror and moods and stuff like that, which worked great in the movies like The Fog or Halloween or The Thing. But as an action director, he isn't as good, I think. And the action sequences that we do get, they aren't, as big and as impressive as it could have been. Maybe it is because they had such a small budget. They couldn't even shoot this one in New York. They shot in various other different locations. And while there are great atmosphere and while there is great tone in the movie, I'm not as hooked in the movie as I should have been, despite us having one of the coolest heroes of all time. Snake Plissken, with his eye patch, is just one of these super iconic, mega badass heroes that I absolutely love. The look of him is perfect. He has this very likable man of the people kind of a thing, and with his hair and the eye patch and the leather jacket and the tattoos and his husky voice and his badass lines, and they just work so well. And he's one of my favorite actors. He's a fucking chameleon. He can play anything. The problem is that the Duke isn't that interesting of a bad guy. He's just a thug that just want to escape prison, which is understandable, but him and his cronies does play a little bit of a second fiddle to the rest of the movie. And despite the movie having this urgency of trying to get back before his head explodes, and I should be really invested in that, I'm not, because the movie kind of plods along a little bit, and it feels a little bit that nothing really happens, even though stuff happens. I'm getting frustrated every time I see this movie because I generally love this concept. I really generally love the feeling of this movie, but I can't really get into it. Now, don't get me wrong for a second. I do think it's a really, really good movie, but considering how awesome it could have been, I don't know. I really like the ending, and Snake Plissken's awesome last line in the movie is fucking awesome. Me not loving this movie as much as I would like to, I don't think it has that much to do with the budget. Sure, it wasn't a big budget movie, but the fact was that when they, 16 years later, were able to do an almost remake of it, Escape from LA, with a 7 times larger budget, not adjusted for inflation, they were able to craft the movie that was kind of shit. I mean, it was so silly and so over the top that it almost became a comedy. And the blue screen sequences makes the car chase in Dr. No says, well, that's a little bush league. And they had such terrible special effects. Maybe the problem wasn't the low budget. Nevertheless, I think that there are moments in this movie that are absolutely magnificent. But I do have to give a special shout out to my favorite sequence in the movie, in which Snake Plissken is forced to fight a brutish man in a ring, which would have made ECW go a little bit, well, that's a little hardcore, man. Tone it down. But nevertheless, I really like this movie. If you've never heard about it, or if you've never seen it, shame on you. Go and see it immediately. It's a great movie, even though you're warned. If you have seen it, watch it again. The very reasonable runtime makes you forget, your problems for a second and think about a much gentler time where you're just gonna have to seal off Manhattan and place all the violent criminals in there. Great stuff. Escape from New York is one of these great cult movies from the early 1980s. It gets the rating of 71. I wanted to give it so much more, but I can't. I have to follow my heart. I've seen this like 8, 9, 10 times, but every time it just falls short of being the awesome movie that I want it to be. It is still an entertaining movie with a great hero, a great concept, fantastic music, and a great atmosphere. So that was Escape from New York. With a high concept like this, you'd think that Hollywood would have made a remake about it by now, but they have never done so for some reason. They were close to doing it about, 10, 12 years ago, and I think that the idea was that Gerald Butler was going to be Snake Plissken, which could have worked. But we'll see when we get it, if we get it. I kind of hope we doesn't get it, because I'm so sick of remakes and reboots and stuff like that. Anyway, that's it for this little review. I'll see you next time reviewing, well, so-and-so from such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.